Hi everybody, this is Kelly from Bray, and our next section in our feeds video is going to be about bagged forages. I believe last time maybe I said we were going to talk about concentrates, but then I got on this bagged forage kick and decided that this needs to be a separate video and not with concentrates because it doesn't really fit there. So anyway, we are at our local big box feed store and we're going to go over some different types of bagged forages and some options that you have and what may or may not work for you in your area and your management. So the first thing to cover is bagged forage is sometimes going to be very similar to just your typical hay, but in smaller um, pieces. It's chopped up really fine and extruded into these pellets or cubes or what have you. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it has a lot of additional things added in. And so really it's going to be super important for you to just read the label on what you're getting. And we're going to go ahead and add beets in here with bagged forage just because they are used as a source of fiber more so than anything else. So we're going to talk about that with forage rather than with concentrates. But so we've got, like I said, quite a few here, and there's a few over there as well that we're going to talk about. But these guys, they tend to be a little more nationwide as far as availability, this Stanley brand, and I do really like this particular brand, and we're going to talk about why in a little bit. But yeah, your local feed store might have something that's a little different than our local feed store. So just as a reminder, also, any of these pelleted feeds or cubed feeds that are chopped up into really small pieces, those are going to be more of what we call bioavailable, which means they're going to be more easily digested, more quickly digested. And that's not what you want for the bulk of your ration. For the bulk of your ration, you want something that's going to be digested very slowly, and that's why we like that sort of fibrous straw, and that's why we like long stem hay, because we want some of that to make it in its fibrous form back to the hindgut so that those microbes back there have something to work on. So while we do feed some pellets in our rations, like I said, for treats or for a vehicle for supplements, if your animal has good teeth, this should not make up the bulk of your ration. This should just be a little bit of kind of dessert on the side. So you should be still making the bulk of your ration with long stem fibrous hay. This is good if you've got older animals that maybe don't have good teeth and can't chew. It's good, like I said, as a small portion of their ration for their supplements and things like that. It's a good little training treat, but it's not really suitable for most animals to make up the bulk of their ration. So I'm going to start over here with what is my favorite thing to use. And I use these pellets for a couple of different things. I use them as both a vehicle for my supplements. And even if you don't feed a lot of supplements, you should be doing psyllium monthly. So this is a good thing to have your animals kind of accustomed to eating so that you can do your psyllium. But also if you need to add in electrolytes or salts or any kind of medications or things like that. I know personally I have one or two that are really hard to get oral medications into, so it's a whole lot easier and no fight to just put it in some soaked pellets. They eat it and it's not an issue. So that's these Timothy pellets are my favorite. I do like that Stanley has also started to put these little things on the front, but it is really important to read the back of these as well. So we flipped these Timothy pellets over here, and again, they're just these, and these are Timothy only. And what I do like about these is when you come back here to the ingredients, there's no binders, there's no fillers. It's just Timothy grass. And then, of course, there you have all of the analysis on there. Um, we are low sugar, which is what we like. Um, and then we're low starch, low sugar. Protein, we've got a minimum instead of a maximum, but that's just how they're choosing to do their label. But it is generally going to be fairly low. So again, this is what I like to feed with my supplements, and then I do use them also as a training treat because it is a little reward for them, but it's going to be low sugar, and I've already got 50 pounds of it. Um, when I say I feed these with my supplements, I'm doing that at a rate of about 1/3 cup of these pellets for 3 mini animals. So I don't feed very many in my supplements. And then another thing to do with pellets is if you're feeding them in a dish or a pan like that, and you're not doling them out one or two at a time like you would if they were treats. But it's very important for you to wet those down, and that's also going to help all of your supplements and things stick to that. I do appreciate. Look at this also up here. This is new. I think they've got a donkey on there, so I appreciate that. That they know who's here feeding these. But yeah, I don't feed anywhere near the target feeding rate of 1.5% of their body weight a day. That would be closer to 2 pounds and a bit for mine. Again, I'm not feeding them 2 pounds. I'm feeding them what's more of a handful, because it's just a vehicle to take those supplements and stuff. So anyway, these are my favorite to feed. Again, of what's available to me, you might have something different, but this brand is carried throughout a lot of the US. So these are the Bag Timothy pellets, and then we'll go look at some other things. So next, we're just going to go on down the row here and talk about some of these things. These, and this is very interesting. I just learned this myself looking at them. These are Alfalfa Timothy cubes. They're Stanley brand. These are Stanley brand Alfalfa Timothy pellets. They've got a few of the same things on here. Performance friendly. That means they don't have anything that is banned as far as performance enhancing drugs. Good for hind gut health. Metabolic safe. It's a little. I argue that a little bit. But then they have the minimum crude protein, the fiber, and the fat. Here we've got the same thing. It's cubes, and these are, if you can feel in there, they're anywhere from a ½ inch to about 3 inches long of these cubes. So we've got protein, fiber, and fat again on here. So I would think, hey, these are the same thing. You know, whatever. It's just whatever you prefer to use. But I'm gonna pause real quick and flip these over, and then we're gonna actually take a look at the labels and see. Okay, so I've got these two things flipped over. Again, they're the same brand, and they're listed Alfalfa Timothy pellets versus cubes. But this is why it's important to look at the label if you're buying something different. So this is the cubes we're looking at. First of all, here we have in the ingredients, we've got chopped alfalfa, we've got Timothy, bentonite clay, propionic acid, acetic acid, benzoic acid, sorbic acid. My guess, because this is what these would be used in human food, these are all some preservatives. And then bentonite clay, they may have added that to amend the moisture, but they may have also just added that to have a little bit of buffering in the gut. I'm not 100% sure why they did that, but bentonite clay is used as a stomach acid buffer and some other supplements. So that compared to this one, which is just sun-cured alfalfa and Timothy. So, and then obviously this is chopped and this is ground. So these are going to be finer particle sizes and a little more quickly digested than they will be over here. But just to point out that these do have different ingredients, which is not something I would have expected, to be completely honest with you. I just learned this today. And then we go up here and we look at the analysis. And so we look at our protein. That's one that we need to worry about with our donkeys. And again, we have a little donkey up there. That this is max 13% protein. Okay. That's kind of to be expected when you've got so much alfalfa in there. But we come over here, protein 12. But you'll notice that's the minimum. So we don't have maximum on here. We don't have minimum on here. So I would be a little more comfortable using the cubes rather than the pellets because I know where the top line of that protein is. Here I don't. Here I know the minimum. So, but this does also, it lists the sugars, max at 6%. Here we don't have any sugars. So that is just something to be aware of. So then as we move down the row, we have this other brand, this Do More, and we have Alfalfa Timothy and Alfalfa Bermuda pellets. And again, looking at these, you might think, okay, same thing, different grass. Easy enough. And I feed Timothy, so I'm going to choose Bermuda, or I feed Bermuda, I'm going to choose Timothy, or I'm going to get whatever is on sale, what have you. However, when we go down here, So again, we've got our protein on there and it's pretty low. We don't have anything about sugar in there, but here we have alfalfa and Timothy, just ground, and that's all that we've got in here. When we go over to the Bermuda, we've got, again, pretty low protein, but that's the minimum, that's not the maximum. So, but then we go down to here to ingredients, and this is, as it turns out, um, more of a complete feed. So this has got all these other things in here. It's got molasses, it's got distiller's grains, it's got rice bran, and then all of these vitamins and minerals that have been added in. So if you're using this as a vehicle for your supplements, you do need to know that you've already got all of this supplementation in there. And we also do need to pay a little more attention to the feeding guidelines on this. You can't just kind of wing it because it does have all these extra things added in. So this is going to take the place of a mineral supplement or something like that. So just be aware of that. Again, this looks, it's just over here with the pellets. But this is a vitamin mineral supplement pellet. And you wouldn't really expect that to be, these kind of look the same, just different grass, but they are not the same. So then we get over here to the alfalfa pellets, and they're alfalfa only. And we've gone from metabolic safe to highly palatable, which of course is true. Alfalfa is very, very tasty to your animals. But you'll see we've got now just a minimum protein, and it's pretty high. Not a lot of fat, good amount of fiber. But we'll look back here and see we've once again got a minimum protein. It is just alfalfa, so there's that. There's not anything else added in. But your protein's pretty high, so alfalfa pellets, alfalfa cubes. Some folks do keep some around for a very high value reward. If you're working on something that's particularly difficult, you might have 6 or 8 of those in your treat pouch. If you have an animal that's working really, really hard and you're feeding them a little bit of alfalfa, that might be a good choice. Or if you've got like a pregnant or lactating Jenny, that might be a good choice. I do keep some alfalfa pellets around because I do have some other stock that eats them. And I do, again, put a few of them in my treat pouch. We're working on something difficult. And pellets to me are just easier than a bale of hay. So if you're doing that, that is an option. But again, that's very, very, very limited amounts of what you want to feed these. And by very limited amounts, once more, I'm talking 8 to 10 pellets a day if we're working on something. If you're feeding any alfalfa because of nutritional needs, be sure you've talked to your vet first. Again, that's not to say there's no animals that should have alfalfa. There are some that should, but they are typically kind of outliers. And so if you're making up very much of your ration of this at all, you should talk to your vet first and make sure that they feel that that's a wise idea. And then down here we have alfalfa cubes. And I would love to say they're the same thing, but hey, maybe they're not. Let's look at the back. Yeah, no, those have all of the same preservatives as the alfalfa Timothy cubes. So good to know. But the other thing about these alfalfa cubes is because they are so big, they are very, very risky to feed dry. They will cause choke. So again, unless you are really flaking those off into tiny little pieces to give as a treat, which I assure you is a hassle, because I have used these previously and I don't like them. I like to use the pellets. These are very dangerous. They can cause choke very easily. They also do suck up a lot of water out of the gut, so they can cause some impactions like that. They expand a lot. So, and they kind of hard to chew. So anyway, alfalfa cubes are generally, from me, going to be a no. I'd say pass those up. If you are feeding some small amount of alfalfa, I'd go with pellets instead of cubes for ease, just because cubes can be pretty dangerous and should not be fed dry ever. So over here we have beet pulp. And beet pulp is a byproduct of the sugar industry. So you can make sugar out of a few things. Typically it's made out of sugar cane or sugar beets. And so you'll see that as cane sugar on labels if it's made from sugar cane, if it's made from sugar beets. This beet pulp is the byproduct of that. This is what's left over after everything's been squeezed out. All of the sugars have been squeezed out. and they're very efficient at doing that. So this has actually pretty low sugar. You would think, oh, it's a plant that you're using to create sugar, but it is pretty low sugar. You can see there it says metabolic safe. The thing about beet pulp, it can be a good source of fiber. It can be a good source of some additional nutrition. It's good for their hind gut. But you do have to go through a few extra steps with beet pulp. So you do have to both rinse it to get off any sort of molasses dust that's still on there, and you do have to soak it. So beet pulp, again, is very, very risky if you don't soak it. It can cause choke, it can cause impaction and colic. Um, you, if you don't have a lot of time to spend mucking about with your feet every day, beet pulp's probably not the choice for you. Because you do have to soak, and you do have to soak quite a long time. So, this is a possibility, but only really look at this if you've got a fair amount of time on your hands, because you do have to soak that, and you do have to soak for quite a long time. And so, again, if your vet recommends it, it's not like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible idea. But just know your management has to be such that you've got time to do all of that. And here we have Teff pellets. And again, I do also like how Stanley's done this, where they put these things. So they're metabolic safe, carb sensitive, senior friendly. You've got your minimum protein on there. And then we go to the back, and we just, again, have sun-cured Teff grass. Once more, I would love that to have a max, but it doesn't have a minimum. It does have the sugars listed, which I like. It does say we're good for a donkey up there. This is a fine choice for your vehicle, for your grain. This is a fine choice for your training treats. The only reason I don't feed this and I choose the Timothy is because my animals get teff as their main forage. So the Timothy does just feel like a little more of a treat. It's a little bit different for them. And typically, Timothy, being a cold season grass, will have a little bit more sugar in it. So if you are really, really trying to get sugars down, teff might be a better option for you. I'm not worried to that extent about sugars with mine. And like I said, the majority of their forage is Timothy. So I do like to get some variation as far as the species of grass that they're eating and the species of plants that they're eating. So that's why I don't choose teff, but this is a good choice. If that's what's available and if that's what you want to buy, that's a good choice for you. So these are also very popular around Arizona. Again, I'm not certain that these are super available in other places, but they're popular here, these Lakin pellets. Um, so there's Meadow Light, there's Lakin Light. These Amedsa are kind of the same thing. So all of these are going to be somewhat similar. Again, look at the label when you look at them, because these here that say they're alfalfa Timothy, we're going to go back here again. Look at our ingredients. We do have alfalfa, we do have Timothy, phosphoric acid. So presumably they're using that for a phosphorus supplement, zinc, manganese, copper. All of these things we've got in here that, again, are just vitamins and minerals that they've got to make this a more complete feed, so that you're not having to feed any grains or anything from over in that section there. Again, just know that these are a complete feed. So if you're using things for training treats, I would avoid using these as training treats unless you ration out your day's ration and put that in your treat pouch and then use all of it. But these, because they do have that vitamin supplement, you don't necessarily want to just kind of free choice feed these as you train. Same with Lakin Light. So here we have alfalfa Bermuda. We have soybean hulls, which is the little shell around the soybeans. But we've got a bunch of other things as well. So just be aware of that when you're looking at these. Flip them over, look at the label. They've also got this hydration hay here, which, let's see if I can zoom correctly there. There we go. It's chopped Timothy and orchard grass, alfalfa, and some vegetable oil. This, I mean, if you're running the risk of being in a fire and you need something that you can throw in your trailer and have there for fire season and evacuate with and still have some hay, this is probably not a bad idea, as long as your animals are used to eating some Timothy and a little bit of alfalfa, so that this isn't going to throw off their gut that much. But again, if you're using a little bit of Timothy there um, for your vehicle, for your supplements, this is not going to be super different. This is not a all the time forage, obviously. That's $18 for that little bit there, but as far as I know, there's nothing to say this is a terrible option for emergencies. It's not an everyday hay, but it might be handy for you to have around for emergencies. We also have here, you can see they've got these wrapped bales, and just something to keep in mind, these are just regular hay bales. They're just wrapped to be in these tidier packages. They're good for traveling. They're good if you don't need much hay. So I wouldn't call these bagged or processed forages. They're just in smaller bales that are easier to move. So finally, we have what's called haylage, which is similar to silage, but they use hay instead of woodier things. This is the only bag of it we have here. It's like this. They call it probiotic alfalfa hay. I guess that sounds better than haylage. Um, but anyway, what this has done is it's already fermented a little bit. And so you can see down there the different analysis on this. The thing about this is already kind of pre-digested since it's got those probiotics in there. There's actually going to be more bioavailable. So you can see there it says that it increases the absorption of nutrients and higher nutritional value. So the fact is we don't want any of that with our donkeys. So this product is it makes feed more efficient, and we don't want to be more efficient. We want to be less efficient. So this is not something that you want. I'm not a big fan of haylage, whether it be alfalfa or I've never seen it that's grass, but haylage is not real big here. But I would stay away from that. So that's your bagged forages. Again, I do like to always have a little bit of that in my animal's diet because I need it there as a vehicle when I do their psyllium supplements once a month. I use it for their other supplements, and I also use them for training treats. So they don't make up a large portion of their ration, but I do like to have them handy. And once more, your extruded, pelleted, processed, however you want to call it, forage, always soak it so that it doesn't cause choke or impaction. Never, ever, ever feed cubes unsoaked. That's very dangerous um, and can cause severe choke, can kill your animal. Um, and again, just make sure you're turning those bags over and reading them and seeing what's actually in your feed because some of it's not exactly as intuitive as you would think.